In this episode, we talk about the 8-figure mastermind that we just attended today and some of the biggest takeaways that we had. We're actually discussing wealth creation a lot and how you can actually invest your money wisely so it's working for you. Why Australian real estate is back on our radar. And the last thing, and probably the most important, is partnerships, collaborations. You do not need to give away 50% of your company because you are lacking in a certain skill. There are better ways, and we're going to tell you exactly how you can do this in this episode. Let's go. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are we? How's the week been?
I have had a pumping week this week. All wins this week. I am on a high at the moment. What about you?
Well, they say that February, this month is super potent in terms of the energy. I don't know if you're feeling it. Apparently, it's a really good month to gamble. It's all about money, and it just seems to be at the moment. I don't know if you guys are feeling this, but for me, making money feels super easy. It's like I can't not make money. Whoa!
Sorry, I'm
What the hell are you guys up to now, honestly?
Oh my God, she scared the crap out of me. So
You've got a rubber. Watch out.
yeah, you have rubber. So Viv actually is in the same hotel room with me at the moment because we had a mastermind today with over 30 multi-million-dollar business owners in one room. She Sells with Brooke actually hosted the event, which is really cool. But it was a really nice place to just exchange ideas. There was some topics today that I personally wouldn't put myself into room, i.e. property, Katie. So like wealth creation stuff, which is just really interesting. I was glad that Scott was there because I was like, you go onto those tables and you sort out that stuff.
Me and Scott would have been together. I would have been like, let's go.
Yeah.
I think Brooke and I both walked away from, well, I think we both looked at each other at one point, as we do in these podcasts often, and go like, oh, okay, guess we're going to have to get these houses at some point, aren't we?
Come on, girls.
Honestly,
We've got this.
Scott turned to one of the guys that was speaking, and he's got over a $10 million property portfolio. And he literally started his presentation by being like, I could throw in the towel tomorrow with my business and still live the life that I do even better without having to work another day in my life. And that's when it really sunk in for me to go, wow, okay, I invest everything into my business, but what happens, God forbid, Meta shuts down or something happens with the business, I don't have an investment portfolio yet that would allow me to just enjoy business a little bit better, like he was explaining. And Scott turned to him at the table and was like, if you were me, let's say hypothetical situation, you had X amount of money in the bank account, what would you do? And the guy turned to Scott and said, I would buy property in Australia yesterday. So yeah, this is like everything is pointing to property.
I love that. That is amazing. And it's kind of what I was going down the track on in one of our recent podcasts with the tree analogy. It's like at the moment, you guys are pumping everything back into that one tree, which is growing beautiful fruit, different fruit, like you like to say. But, let's go and plant some more seeds to grow some more trees so that you can actually build that forest. It will take the pressure off for sure.
Absolutely.
And one of the things he spoke about was around, whether it's property, whether it's shares, whether it's something like crypto, whatever you're interested in, the principles around how can you responsibly take on debt, so that say you had $1,000 and you put that $1,000 into, say, the S&P 500, what would that look like after 10 years versus if you took a loan out, which would allow you to get $186,000 and pay a $1,000, interest payment on the loan, then the difference between your outcome after 10 years was monumental. And it was just demonstrating how when you can be really smart with it and go and get the right advice, and obviously don't overexert yourself. And he was very conservative and a big believer of having like positively geared properties, for example, but it was just another way of looking at things from a different lens. And not everyone will be at the stage where they are going, whether at that $10 million portfolio or whatever he had in property, but there's always a starting point. And the other thing that I heard from someone was, you're always running your own race as well. So, sometimes we feel urgency around these things, but at the end of the day, you do have to run your own race, know what is available to you, but don't be pressured by things that, invisible forces which actually aren't there.
And this was my point last week, guys, is that the capital growth in property, it just so much outweighs the cash flow deficit. And then that obviously then compounds. So I love that you guys have had that learning today. And I think that, you know, if I could teach anyone anything, it would be that compounding growth effect in the property market, because the amount of pressure release as a business owner, and when you have a property portfolio running in parallel to your business, that you are feeding it along your journey, you know you've always got that safety net. So if anything ever happens with your business, you've got that portfolio to back you up.
If I could share something that I heard in this room today, because we've had, obviously there was multi-million-dollar business owners in this room exchanging ideas. And one thing that I really noticed is you really get the best help from the people at the top of their mountain. Like, I like to think of the mountain analogy. The people at the top, obviously there's less of them because the air gets thinner. Not everyone makes it to the top of the mountain, but those who do are so much more willing to put their hand up, like down, and actually be like, hey, I do this. You should try this. Hey, like, let me help you up. Come up here. It's amazing. The view is so great. If you get stuck in the middle of the mountain where all the average is, you just get dragged down. And one of I was on a podcast the other day where I was talking about the crab in the bucket mentality. Have you heard this, guys? The crab in the bucket mentality?
I haven't, would love to hear it.
So I don't know if you've ever seen crabs in a bucket, but this is literally the way that they act. Is I went to a store and I could see all these crabs, and I actually asked the guy, why don't the crabs let each other out? Because they can literally just crawl out of the bucket. And he was like, because they just pull each other down. The moment that one person gets close to the top, they are pulled down by everybody else. And what I find with people that are in business that are maybe struggling or they're not where they want to be is they have that crab in a bucket mentality, where it's like someone will be going to crawl out. Maybe there's been a big breakthrough in their business, or maybe they've looked at doing something a different way. They've got a bit of momentum going and they go to get out of that bucket. And then if they surround themselves with people that are stuck in that average mentality, they're just pulled back down. Whereas the crabs who have already made it to the top, they're looking down at the other crabs and being like, come, like, let me help you up here. Try this, do that. There is zero gatekeeping. It's like, come to the top of the mountain. Everyone wins up here. Let me just share openly with you about what I've been doing. And I just think that's so, so cool.
And I think that's back to Viv's point. It's like you have to run your own race, because people will try and drag you down. And I think it's just important to get your own path, get your own strategy, run your own race, and just try and phase out, those other crabs, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Not let them pull you down. Something else that I also want to share, which is just such a fresh perspective at looking at sales and marketing in your business. And I feel like most business owners, particularly those stuck in the swamp, right? The real drag, it sometimes feels like, is we get stuck in that transactional thinking where it's sell, market, sell harder, spend more, get louder. And that's why sometimes you tell people how much you're spending on paid ads and they're literally like, what? I'm not spending anywhere near that. But high level operators, and some of the operators in this room, they think in distribution and leverage. They don't ask, how do I sell this? They actually ask, who already has access to the people that I want? And this is the difference between pushing versus plugging in. So a couple of things that I took away from this, which my brain was just ticking over as this guy was talking. The first thing is, stop thinking direct and start thinking distributed. So most businesses get capped because they rely on direct to consumer pressure, right? So ads, cold DMs, funnels, launches, all these things. If they do that, the direct selling, the money goes away. And that becomes expensive. It's emotionally and financially draining at times. Instead, what you should be asking is, where is my audience already gathered and who leads that room? Then you're not building from scratch. You're actually tapping into flow. The second thing he spoke about is ecosystems trumps audiences. And what he means by this is every single business in every single niche lives in an ecosystem. So for example, if we look at coaches, you would find other coaches inside, other coaching communities. If we look at sales, you can look at inside business owner audiences. If we look at fitness, we can look into lifestyle brands. Like there's so many different places that we can look. But your job isn't to build the biggest megaphone and try to be the loudest and the greatest and be the leader of your niche. Your job is to find the rooms where the trust already exists. And so he spoke about who hunting, which I am obsessed with this phrase. It is just so amazing because rather than lead hunting, like you're literally knocking on doors, getting rejected, next door knock, rejected, you're going to start hunting. You can start asking yourself, who already has the credibility with my ideal client? Who already has attention? Who already has distribution? And one aligned relationship can outperform $10,000 that you spend in ads, or 100 cold conversations, or months of content grind. So most people, they never unlock this kind of leverage because they don't back themselves enough to have the damn conversation. And so often we get to a place where we actually think we're very successful and we lose that humble nature to actually get on the phone with someone.
It's happening. We're running a 2-day property development event at the luxury Mondrian Hotel in Burleigh Heads here on the Gold Coast, and we want you there. Because if property development is even on your radar, this will save you years of guessing. Over 2 days, you'll see how deals are actually found, how people fund them without having to be rich, and how projects go from the idea to actually being built. You'll hear from people doing it right now, with special guest Michael Matusik, Australia's leading property analyst and commentator on what the market is actually doing right now. Funding specialist showing you how money actually flows. You'll leave knowing what your next move should be. Check the link below, grab your early bird tickets now, and let's start developing.
All about who, not how. This is something that I've definitely used throughout my journey. And, talking about it from the property perspective, I always hire really good consultants and I pay top dollar for these consultants, but it's leveraging their knowledge and leveraging their skills. So I kind of can see the similarities with, people leveraging audiences. I'm all about leveraging someone's skill sets. Like, let me learn from their mistakes so I don't have to make the same mistakes. So this is all just the leverage that we do have at our fingertips these days. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think definitely leveraging either audiences or skill sets is such a great tip.
And he had quite a few examples which were B2B. And so he might have been talking about, well, if someone had a door-to-door salesperson company and they were then making contact with 500 different houses every day, then what's another business that could link in with that and could also be, drop a flyer at the house or so on and so forth. And it reminded me, initially it sounded kind of complicated, or I was trying to apply it to our business and thinking, where would I even start? And I realized that it's actually something that we do, and probably a lot of other people do as well, without even realizing. So for us in the past, this might have looked like giveaways with an influencer. It could look like running a collaboration event with a business. It might look like an event opening and we go and hand out free samples. It's all those different things where you can, you might be running your ads and that might be the main marketing channel for you, but how, again, in terms of using that word leverage, can you sort of piggyback on what someone else might already be doing, but in doing so also adding some value. So are you giving away a prize? Are you offering value with product? Are you speaking for free? What are the other ways that you can get in front of your audience? It doesn't have to be rocket science.
Or are you helping them with open palms, open heart, without actually being like, how much can I get from this person? Because one thing he did mention, which I really, really liked, it's like, rather than thinking direct sell, it's like, who can I go through? But at the same time, that's not using people, because it's like, if I look at this person, if I look at their network and I'm like, wow, I can definitely flow into that and tap into that. How can I then come in with open palms, open heart, and actually lead with value and go, you know what, I'm going to do this for free for you. I'm going to give you my service and not actually expect anything in return, but just know that reciprocity is there. And because through one conversation, that person can then open you up to hundreds and thousands of ideal clients. And it was just such a powerful reframe to have with you. It's like, you should never be above having a conversation with someone, because you never know who they know and who they know and then who they know. And then all of a sudden you're just in front of the right people and you didn't have to spend a cent. Like, we literally, for one lead, not even a customer, for a lead, sometimes you can pay in excess of $600. For literally a knock on the door, it costs a business owner $600, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the creative, yes. But ultimately, if you're relying on just paid marketing alone, it sometimes can cost you in the thousands to acquire a customer. And like, that's insane. So we got to start thinking of ways that we can leverage other people's audiences and trust. And where can we find our ideal client? It was just
And
such
so
a good
taking the information, Brooke, what are some steps that you're going to take after learning this?
Well, I definitely in my little notepad, I wrote down who can I go through. That was like I'm who hunting, right? That's what he said. I'm who hunting. And again, I'm not who hunting to use these people, but I'm who hunting to show me what audiences, who's already created trust and credibility within certain industries that I could find my ideal client. But more than that, how can I assist? How can I provide value, knowing that if I lead in with that, and which is my whole philosophy, I want to serve first, then what opportunities and doors can open me off the back of that? So I think that's a great a first task for anyone listening to this, thinking, okay, I want to look at distribution and leverage as something to do in my business. The first thing you need to do is actually look at, where does your ideal audience live? Who's already doing that really well? And once you've got that, it's like, okay, how can I access or get access to that person? It's not through the DMs on Instagram, but it might be through doing a post on LinkedIn asking to collab with someone. Maybe that's the first thing. And then that person who you end up collabing with knows so-and-so who knows so-and-so. And yeah, so that would be step number one.
Or you just pay to get in the room. You know, I know with Unemployable Property, we've got an amazing event coming up, 7th of March, I believe, and there's some tickets open for anyone wanting to jump in, but pay to get in the room so you have that chance to meet the right people. Anyone can come to an event like the Unemployable Property event or another event, and you've got to sometimes pay to get in that room and then have skills like Brooke naturally has to have those amazing conversations to build that relationship.
Yeah.
And always say yes. Like Brooke put this event in our group chat a couple of weeks ago, right? And I didn't even read it. I just said, yeah, I'll come. And looking at my calendar, like the amount of sleep I've had this week, it's quite showing when I ask people the same question twice today. But when I turned up today, I thought I actually didn't even check where I was going, who was going to be here. It just didn't matter. And all of a sudden, like, what amazing conversations, what learnings have come out of it. So I am a firm believer that if you're in the kind of building phase, you know, not only do you have to do work and put in time and energy, but you need to put yourself out there and put, like you say, Katie, whether it's paid or not, get yourself in the room, say yes to everything, because you will be able to connect with people you otherwise would not have been able to. And you never know what's going to come around the corner.
Yep. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And seriously, like, that is why I get myself into these rooms. And it's why we actually put on this event in the first place, because a lot of these really cool masterminds happen over in the US, but there's very few that happen actually here in Australia. And we own a significant portion of the online business space. So it's like, why would we not get together and exchange ideas and principles and strategies that are working well for some of us and the things that aren't working so well? And also just a place to share our fuck ups, because there is a lot. And it's like, if I can share one big fuck up that I've had with other business owners, then they're going to be like, oh, okay, I won't make that same mistake. And we just all get to go further together. And that makes the view so much more beautiful when you've got people around you that you actually like spending time with. So.
And how empowering is it when you get in a room of like-minded people? I think us Unemployable crew, we're a little bit of a weird bunch sometimes. And I've always sort of struggled to really connect with other people until I found this crew, because we're all as weird as each other and we're all just in it for the game. And yeah, it's just so empowering to actually get in a room of like-minded people.
Absolutely.
We're all different as humans, but we're also all the same. And I think one of the things I've enjoyed, and, you know, and I'm reminded every time I come to events that are often full of founders. And look, I haven't had a lot of experience in the corporate world, but I do just love the notion that just anything goes. You know, it does really show that everyone is their own boss. You set your own standards, and I think it also teaches you. And I learned, not that I ever I remember one networking event where I said to a guy, "Oh, what's your business?" He said, "I'm actually here. My daughter has the business." And it was in that moment I was like, wow, that was my, reality check of, you never judge a book by its cover. And I would have liked to think I never did that before. But when I realized that the 16-year-old girl was actually the business owner, it has from there on out just made me see everyone as equal, and you never know who you're talking to. And if you have an open mindset like that in any kind of situation that you say yes to, you will meet the most fascinating people. And if you don't see everyone as equal and interesting, then I think you miss out on information.
Absolutely. I am better than no one. No one is better than me. I love that philosophy, because then you literally are open to learning something from everyone. And that is a true value of mine. I do believe that you can learn something from everyone. And maybe it's something that you already know, but you're seeing it a different way. You're hearing a different way. You're hearing about it in a different way. And it can just take that one thing. Like Viv, for you, it was seeing that 16-year-old business owner. It's like that one thing is going to literally change the way you show up and speak to any new founder again. Like, that's insane. It's like the classic, you walk into a designer store with, your flip-flops on and your big, oversized t-shirt, and you don't get a look in. And it's like, did you see what happened the other day with, what's his name? Who's a Happy Gilmore guy? Adam Sandler's daughter?
No.
So she walked into a designer store and, like, no one was paying her any attention. No one came up to her. And she literally was like looking around. She's like, hey, I want to talk to someone. And someone was like, oh, okay, we'll go and get you someone. And then no one came. So she rang her dad, Adam Sandler, and was like, hey, like, they've been really rude here. He came into the store and he literally was like, I'll take one of everything. And he walked out with like multiple bags. But as he was walking out, he was like, never judge a book by its cover. Like, shame on you, basically. And I was like, that's so fucking cool.
That is awesome.
Hey, wow. They got even more sales. Yeah.
Right. But I was like, imagine being able to do that.
Yeah, that's wild.
Back to our wealth chat earlier, I actually had a pretty exciting win this week. It actually wasn't my win personally. It was my best friend's win, but I've kind of gone along the journey with her. And I think it is just testament to doing the work. But a few years ago, we sort of sat down and I twisted her arm to do a goal setting session with me. She's not really a goal planner, but finally I conned her into doing one with me. We wrote a plan. We put it onto the shared notes, which is what I always do. Of course, I'm her accountability partner and keeping her on track, and she's ticking off all the things. And she was kind of someone that at that moment probably never thought that she would really own her own home. And fast forward from that goal setting session, she had actually purchased 2 properties within 12 months from that session, which is just an amazing thing. And she, after those 12 months, I think started to realize, hey, this is actually possible. And the win this week was that we did the reevaluation on her homes. And she has got an equity of $165,000 that we are now releasing from those properties to then purchase hopefully the 3rd and the 4th property. But these homes were around the $600,000 mark. So I would say that affordable. And when she first bought the first $600,000 property, and then we worked on the second, and now the plan's all coming to fruition because, yeah, after 12 months, we've now done the valuation, which is what I always recommend. We're releasing $165,000, which is amazing. And then that is going to then go ahead to buy her 3rd and hopefully 4th property. So it really does show the power of getting in and letting that accumulate. That's an over 10% annual increase. So like that is a pretty great average. But even at a 7%, it still would have been good. So yay, that is.
How's she feeling about seeing that happen?
I think that she probably initially didn't actually quite understand the equity release component. And I think this is where a lot of people do struggle when they first start in their journey, is that, what, I can release the money and I don't have to put any more cash into the next deal. And I don't think she fully understood that process, because we have it all written down. That was always the plan. But until this week, she's like, hold on a minute. So you're telling me I can release this money and I don't have to put cash into my third deal. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. So she is over the moon, and I think she's getting the addiction that I have now. She's really felt that capital growth. So it's testament to her hard work, but I'm just so excited to get someone else into the property journey.
You know what's so crazy is sometimes your identity doesn't catch your desire straight away. So you could have this desire to have whatever it is, a $5 million property portfolio, even just maybe your first property, your first home, whatever it is. And that desire can sometimes just remain a desire because the identity still hasn't caught up. So in this instance, like, it took someone like you, Katie, to sort of call her forward and actually create that goal setting plan with her. And then for her to see it actually come to life and start to believe, not only believe, but see what's possible. Now the identity is creeping up. She's just going to be able to, like, that momentum that's been built, she's just going to be buying properties like it's fucking bread, coffee.
What were her misconceptions, and what was her starting point where you mentioned she was not sure if she was ever going to own a home? What kind of position was she in mentally and maybe even financially, without specifics, of course, at the start of this journey? And how's it changed?
She has got a small business, and so she did have a savings ready to go for a deposit. But, she's had her business for 10 years. She's saved up. So she'd saved a deposit to put forward for both of those two properties. But again, we only purchased around that $600,000 mark. So they weren't over $1 million or anything like that. We got one, we waited 6 months, and we bought the next. That was with cash. So she does have a successful business where she was able to build that cash. But again, for me, these are the stages. I 100% wholeheartedly think that stage one is getting that income, whether that's through business or through a high earning job. But the second stage is that we need to invest it smartly. And so obviously she's now coming over onto that side of it. And now that she's got those two properties that are in a good market, she's getting that equity build up, which is again only going to compound. So I would say she was in a great position. She had her business, she'd worked on it 10 years, and she had a cash deposit ready to go. So she didn't use the first homeowners grant or anything like that. Mentally, she probably wasn't quite ready, but we got there, and it's all now wonderful for her. So
Viv, I think the speaker that spoke about wealth creation today, I loved the story that he shared, because I had a similar upbringing where I watched my dad. He went from working his ass off as a bricklayer to landing a really amazing opportunity and growing his wealth very, very, very quickly. But speaking of desire versus identity, the identity hadn't caught up. So he ended up losing everything that he had just built. It almost happened in a blink of an eye. And the speaker that was speaking today on that, he had a similar story, but he's used that now to really drive what he's done with his wealth. And I'm kind of waiting for myself to go, okay, when are you going to do that? Because I've seen someone go from literally broke to multi-millionaire, yachts, mansions, all the fancy cars. Like, I've literally seen that. I've held it, I've touched it, I've driven the car myself. And then to see it all go away, I'm like, I have this weird mentality with money that it's easy to come into, but it's also easy to leave. And I feel like that's probably the biggest obstacle for me right now. It's not that I don't know I need to do something with my wealth, but I'm just like, like I'm all good. Like, the business is going to be around forever. Like, it's fine. We've got Bitcoin. And it was just today when he was speaking that I was going, okay, I know what my blocker is. It's just, I need to rework my mentality around wealth and understand that wealth isn't how much money you've got in your bank account. It's literally not that. And I can't keep putting every single cent, time, energy, effort into my business, because at some point, I don't know what the future is going to hold. I want to be able to enjoy the business journey so much more and not rely on that as my sole source of income. So it was like a good
I agree that, for me, the business is about producing that income that actually drives the more important business, which is the wealth creation, which is the property portfolio and the investments. So I am very excited, Brooke. I feel like you're on the edge now, teetering to come across into the wealth journey. And once you get started, you will really see a different perspective on business, because business is up and down, it's left and it's right, and it's sideways. And at any point in time, as you said, Meta could completely shut you down. I mean, it's happened to, I think, all of us at some point. And so your business can be taken away from you. But if you have this parallel investment journey going alongside your business, you do have that safety net, which is compounding. I know I use this word a lot, but
well, it needs to get through people's heads, because it's clearly not getting through mine. The most important question, though, that I asked him is, can I still buy my Cartier? In which he looked at me like, actually joking. And I was just like, obviously I am, but also I'm not. I'm like, I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor at some point. And obviously I'm not going to be buying it every single weekend, but I want to be able to maintain the lifestyle. And so that's probably also a bit of a barrier, because I don't want to feel like I have no money, even though it's working for me in the background. I still want to be able to maintain the lifestyle. And that's something that he did actually validate. He was like, look, my lifestyle didn't change when I was building the wealth in the background at all. He was like, it's not like I was looking at the prices on the groceries and having to change anything about my lifestyle. But obviously,
I think it depends on your starting point. Like, you're coming from a different starting point. You've got a successful business, you've got some cash savings, where not everyone is coming from that starting point. Like, I've told my best friend, absolutely no new cars. She desperately wants a new car. And I'm like, that is an absolute no. We are not doing that until we have at least, we've given her a value of what we want in the property portfolio. And so I guess, you have to be honest with yourself. Like, what is more important? The safety and the security of your life and your family's life, or the Cartier bag? I don't know.
Well, but I think one of the things that did pop up was, the guy that was talking about this, he had his business partner in the room, and he said, look, we've actually got really different risk appetites. So it's also about understanding, what does your emergency fund look like? What is that sleep at night number that you need to ensure that, actually, if I've got 12 months living expenses in the bank, I know that if the world fell to pieces, imagine another COVID, or if my business happened and, and I needed to build it from the ground up, then that gives me a buffer to do that. And therefore, I'm happy to take risks in other areas. They talked about how, they talked a lot about some property stuff, but also how, different houses in different areas can make things a lot safer. Diversification, that's when you've got your shares and your property and your crypto. So it was good to get a different perspective, but I liked that, once again, it also came up, we've mentioned it before, that book, The Barefoot Investor, and just a reminder of how good that is as a starting resource, no matter what your income, just to get a grasp on what is compounding, how to do things with less fees as possible, make it as easy as possible, because like you say, Katie, everyone's at a different starting point. And if you're just in the stage where you're building your income and figuring out different ways to do things and beating inflation by investing, then that's also an excellent place to start, and start wrapping your head around things before you freak out and go, oh my God, well, should I have, this already or whatever? Like, it's your own.
Yeah. Yes. I actually met with Eric and Mark this week from the Unemployables, and they were talking to me about potentially looking at investing in Dubai, which is really exciting. I've already spoken about that on the pod. We're looking at soon. I think they're going to present offers to us next week, which is really exciting. But something that they were talking about is the comfortability, right? Which is what you were just saying, Viv. It's like, how much of your money as a percentage do you want to put into property? Do you want to put into crypto? And he was like, you could put 80% of your net worth into crypto. And in 10 years, you will probably have more money than me playing the longer game in property, though my risk appetite is not okay with seeing that drop by 10% overnight. And I have to agree. I definitely don't want to be seeing that either. I rather play a bit of a longer game. If I spend the next 10 years just in my building phase and just understanding that if I do this correct, then I can have a life like Eric and Jen, fucking sign me up. Sign me up.
It's all about the stages. So, stage 1 is the accumulation phase. And obviously I'm into property. So our accumulation phase for us is about safely building enough of an asset that can grow in that capital growth. And for us, during that journey, we have done some manufactured plays, because while we're buying property and we're getting that capital growth, we're then doing, a small reno, or we're doing little fixer-uppers along the way to build that faster, because the property is a slow game. It's very, very slow. So I love the manufactured growth play in that accumulation phase. But from a very high level, the way that I look at it is stage one, which is kind of, I guess, where you're at, Brooke. It's like, let's accumulate. We need to accumulate enough assets that can then compound. For me, stage two is more getting into more of the development space. And that's kind of the stage that I'm currently in, is getting more active, because we've got the safety net. We've done stage one, we've done the accumulation, we've got a large portfolio that we're happy with. And now we're in a more active stage, which I see as stage two. And then, Brooke, the stage that you're probably going to love the most, stage three for us, is the cash flow stage. So it's delayed gratification. It's, doing all of the building blocks first to then eventually get to stage three, which is the cash flow stage, where you can then start to buy your pretty bags and do all the fun things.
If I have to wait 10 years before I can buy another freaking bag, it ain't happening, Katie.
One thing we talked about, which actually it was at a round table I was at, was the idea of investing in early stage startups. And I last year did invest in a startup. And I think, again, it comes back to that season and what you have as leverage. So whether that be time, whether that's your cash, I realized that actually I've got this e-com knowledge. I can spot a good product. I reckon I can, the bet I took would, in my head, it's a little bit like your super or in KiwiSaver, right? In my head, I'm like, I'm 30. I should be taking as much risk as possible at my age to put as many punts out. I'm okay if I'm buying crypto, because I'm not, 3 to 5 years away from retiring. And there was another lady at my table who was saying, well, I've built this big business. Someone's asked me to invest money and maybe some knowledge, but she's in a very different life season with 2 kids, a husband, a house, a few mortgages. That's a very different situation from me with literally no commitment. So I think there's also an element there of, reminding yourself of what stage you're at, and that it is so different for everyone. And is there, are there other ways when you are in your accumulation phase that you can be creative about the knowledge or skills or the resource in terms of money that you might have?
And so have you got any e-com businesses in mind, Viv? I mean, Girls Get Off is phenomenal. Are you sort of looking at potentially doing another?
I think in terms of my time, that's why I invested in someone who was doing their own, because, again, my time spent on GGO is where I'm like investing my active day to day. But if someone else over there wants cash, and then I've got, they've got cash, they need cash, I've got cash, I can give them. Plus there's another few of us who invested who also have the knowledge to leverage if they need help. Then that's how I've used that knowledge at the moment. But yeah, in the future, for sure, we can do other e-com. We'll see what's around the corner.
Well, that brings me on to collaborations, because I know that, Brooke, obviously you collaborate in your business, you have business partners. Viv, I'm not actually sure. Do you have business partners?
Yeah, I've got a business partner.
Yeah, so I'd love to bring this topic forward, the power of collaborations. I have always done business alone. I haven't ever partnered in with anyone. And just recently, I have actually got my first business partner ever in business. And it is actually incredibly powerful. I think I always had a little bit of fear about, collaborating with someone, not having control over what they are going to say, do, think, etc. But I think we have actually found the right person for us on all levels. And I think there's just so much power in collaboration. So what you're saying, Viv, fantastic for listeners maybe getting into business for the first time. Maybe they have a skill, but they lack in other skills. It's about finding a partner that does the opposite skills to you, collaborating together to potentially build that business. I'd love to know, Brooke, how does it sort of go with your business partners?
So I'm very grateful for my business partners, because first and foremost, they had a $25 million online fitness business that when that liquidated, they were able to literally start again. And what they achieved in a 7-year time span, we achieved in 18 months. So that's not all of them, but the one thing that they were missing in this business was an attractive character. Hello. I don't mean attractive as in like the way that I look, but I mean, I wanted to be the brand. I had the idea. I had the skill set that I wanted to actually teach, and they had the marketing expertise and the sales system and operations expertise. So for me, it was the perfect tripod. And we are literally the spectrum of risk appetite as well. So one of my business partners is starving all the time, and he's like, risk it all. And then the other one is super conservative, and then I kind of sit in the middle. And so we just balance each other out very, very, very nicely. We obviously have disagreements. We don't always see eye to eye on things, but we have this rule with each other that if one person is clearly more passionate about something than the other, we have to trust. And you do have a trump card, which you can play at any time. If you're like, nope, I'm out voting you both, I can play that trump card, which, to be honest with you, I've never played. I've been very passionate about some things. And one thing I do want to talk about is today I spoke about building a cult-like community, because that's something that is my expertise. And one of the things that I rejected early on was the idea that the leader of the community was had to be out of sight, out of mind, basically hard to contact. And basically the only way to get more proximity to the leader is to pay more money and continue to climb that hierarchy. And that's something that I rejected literally so early on in our business. I was constantly told, you run too many sessions, you're too accessible, like you're giving too much value. And I was like, absolutely not. For me, I am not a leader of the pack. I am the person at the back of the pack, which means I make sure no one is left behind. I do not believe that just because you pay more, you get access to me. I don't want people to think like that. And that's not how I believe upgrades happen organically. I want them to see what's possible on every single level. And if I can bring with me some of the people that are at the back of the pack who are kind of dragging their feet, if I can push them up by being and walking alongside them, I'm going to get a much better outcome, much better community. And so there are things within this collaboration that I push back on because it's my expertise. But in the same breath, there's also things that I have to let them do because I'm not the expert in marketing. So for instance, with our paid ads, sometimes I'm literally like, please, can we not do that? Like, I don't want to be baking money. I'm going to get so much hate. And I have to sometimes be like, look, if it works, it works. Because my job isn't to bring the people in. That's not my job. So I think it's really important when you're finding a business partner to make sure that you know what their expertise is, what skills are they bringing, but then also you must trust that they're making the correct decision in that particular expertise.
And I think for me getting into this partnership, it's also, we're just on the same wavelength energy wise. I love energy, and I think that we have the same work ethic, but we really enjoy hanging out with each other. And I think that that's a big part of it too, making business fun. What about you, Viv? How's your partnership go?
Yeah, I definitely say that you need to have the same energy. Like, that's so important. And you need to agree on what is the direction we're going in, because if people have two different understandings of actually, like, okay, we might agree, first of all, you've got to agree on the goals. You might agree on the goals, but maybe the actions look different. And therefore you might need to have a conversation. I think what you're talking about, Brooke, in terms of people having their specialties, being really clear upfront on what are your clearly defined roles, because I think I've had two different business partnerships, and because often when you are a startup and you're just like hitting the ground running, you're working like you're being chased. It is so normal for an early stage startup for you to both be kind of doing everything. But there also comes a point where you then have to go, okay, well, you're better at that, I'm better at this, and you also have to be careful of double handling. So yes, when you're used to doing kind of everything and being a jack of all trades, which is needed in the start, and is actually really advantageous to have two people kind of working for free or more, then you have to also be careful that you're not, if you give someone the responsibility of marketing, that they then can also make decisions around, say, budgets or whatever for that. So it's not like, oh, this insurance bill came in, should we pay this? Or do you reckon we need, all those kinds of things. You do need to divide up those things, because otherwise you just waste time, and you realize that, wait, you've got two people there and now you're paying double to get that job done. Well, that's just cost you so much more. So you have to be careful as well that you do evolve the business as it needs to be. And it's normal at the start, but then you've always got to be changing.
It's too slow. one thing about partnerships and having business owners is you do, and this is why I said you have to trust their decision making, because especially in their department. Because let's just say we want to increase the ad spend. If every single time they had to bring that to the management meeting and then we would vote on it, and then we'd probably have to go away and look at the P&L, and it's just too slow. It's too slow. And by the time we actually want to increase the ad spend, the momentum has passed, or the closers have blocked off their calendar, and then we can't get the capacity right. So I truly, truly want to make this very clear to anyone considering a business partner. Trust is the most important thing that you must have. Like, if my business partner was to spend $50,000 on increasing the ads, I wouldn't blink an eyelid.
And
so
I
if
would
there's
say that
someone-
another part of that, and even just at the very beginning, and I've done this before, and I've been given the advice, is always, outside of operational things, design your divorce at the beginning. Like, you must have shareholder agreements, and just do it by the book, and just tick the box, because it's all exciting at the start. And if you do have disagreements in the future because people change, life seasons change, then at least you've got that one source of truth, which decides how you're going to deal with conflict or ups and downs, or if someone wants in or out. That's just a little caveat there for anyone about to go into business with others.
And so if someone is kind of listening, maybe they've got a skill set that they, excel at, but they're missing out on things, and they do want to collaborate with someone, where would you guys say to find a partner? Where have you guys found your partners?
I wouldn't search for a partner personally. That wouldn't be my advice. My advice would be to get good at the thing you're missing first and foremost, because there are so many partnerships that go wrong. Luckily, in our instance right here, we're talking about good partnerships, but I know way more that have gone absolutely the other way. So it would be my recommendation that you do try and find something that you are the sole business owner of, and only go into business with people that you trust and have something that they can offer that you do not have, or do not have any interest in learning. So let's just say you suck at sales, go and get good at sales. That is the recommendation. Don't go and find someone who's good at sales. Like, that's silly. Every founder should know how to sell first and foremost. That's another conversation. But yeah, I honestly, I as much as I love my business partners, I do think it is better, especially in your first business, to do it yourself.
I think from a property perspective, it's really good to partner in with others. Some people will have the money, other people will have the skills, other people will have the time. And, you don't often have all three. It's very hard to have all three. And if you don't have all three, but you are wanting to, say, do a development or get into property, I think that collaborating with someone who doesn't share the same skill, can get you into that deal, can get you started, and then maybe go out on your own. Sorry, Viv, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that reflecting, I've been quite lucky. Initially, my first business partner, we, in our last year of uni, had a group project that went the whole year. So before we even decided we were going to go into business together, we'd already done a project with each other for a whole year, and we knew that we worked well together. And I've actually seen examples of great business partnerships from people who might have started a business together, and maybe they've worked together in corporate, and so they understand what they work like, their strengths, their weaknesses, and it's easy to figure out, okay, whose job is whose. My current business partner, Joe, we met through doing business, and we just knew that we had similar ideas and aspirations about what we wanted a business to look like and grow like. So I think there's always look, there's ways that you can safeguard yourself, like the shareholders agreement. Maybe and I've seen people post on LinkedIn saying, I'm looking for someone who can do X, Y, and Z. I guess it's all just, it's like anything, right? Anything could happen. 50%, look at in personal relationships, 50% of marriages end in divorce. So business partnerships could be successful, could be not. I think I would just you're never going to know for sure. Anything could happen. What if someone something happened, or maybe someone had an accident and got addicted to opioids or something? You just don't know what's around the corner. So it's the best thing that you can do is
I said, give them a rev share though. Instead of going in 50-50 with someone, actually go, if you are lacking in one particular area, say it's marketing, go and look at a marketing agency. Even look at giving away equity in your business, but not a 50-50 partnership unless you know the person, you've worked with the person, you've trusted the person, you actually know how they operate. Because I've seen things go so pear-shaped, like literally damaging not only relationships, but families and businesses altogether. So all I'm saying is just be careful with who you select to work with. And I think now, given we live in 2026, and there's a lot that can be done with AI, and you can literally collapse 10 years of knowledge into a 3-month course. Do that first, and seriously just consider your options. Consider giving away a rev share, even if you really want someone to come in and have that level of commitment. But just going into partnerships, like it's to me, that's a risky play. My partners, by the way, I worked with, they were my bosses. I was selling for them. I knew how they operated. I knew the type of people they were. I met their families. Like, I was very much okay about going into partnership with them because I knew all of that before I said, yeah, let's do it.
That's actually a very good point, because at the start of this business, we gave away equity to a couple of different people. One person gave us money and someone else did work for us up front. And we were like, oh, this is amazing. We're going to use you forever. So we're going to give away some equity. And one of the biggest learnings to come from that was, first of all, giving away equity is actually a really big deal. And in future, if I was to do it again, I love what you're talking about, Brooke, in terms of having like sweat equity. So not just, instead of paying them, give them equity, but what's a certain target we need to get to. And actually think that most businesses, like the business partnership at the start, if you've got founders, it is going to change so much. So the needs for the business are very, 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 very likely going to change. And so we ended up buying out one of these people a year on, which was great. And the business has still not needed those skills since, and that's great. What a good learning. And then the other person where we had money, that was also epic. And we did need money at the time, and that like served its purpose. But at the same point, lucky we were able to have, lucky we had a good relationship to realize that actually we should get this person off the cap table, because it's like for the long term of the business. If we want to raise in future and they're like, who's this random person with 10% and they paid how much, it just makes things a lot easier. And in future, if I was going to give away equity, it would be, okay, well, you can have equity at this point. And even when people talk about employee shares and so on, yes, you can go through that process. But I think for me personally, and I haven't done it before, but I think watching that, like just the admin process, I think I would rather just give people bonuses based on performance than, and maybe if you didn't have that cash, then great, we can figure out some share scheme. But I think actually, a bit of a quicker wins could be a better way to do it. I don't know. I'm a fan of less admin, but everyone's in a different position.
Money changes every dynamic, every relationship. And let me tell you something that starts to build very quickly is resentment. If you are giving away 33% of your business to a business partner who's not upholding their end of the bargain, let me tell you the headache, the resentment, like there's so many things that start happening because of that. So it's just such an important decision. I don't think you should just in a garage decide that you want to start a business with your best friend and that's where it starts. Like I think it requires a lot more strategic thinking about who you're going into business with than just like, let's do a business together. Because my personal opinion on that.
So changing gears just slightly, I wanted to bring something that we've been doing a lot lately in the development space, which I think is like one of the most underrated strategies. And it's something that I have just sort of trialed over the last 6 to 7 months. And this is putting properties under an option contract. So I just wanted to kind of put this forward for any of our sort of listeners getting into the development space. So basically what it means is that you do control the land, but you don't have to settle on the land. So it's an option. So the way that we are doing this, just to make it a little bit more simple for the vendor, is we are putting a 6-month due diligence clause within our contract. So it's just a nice little 1 paragraph rather than a full option contract. So we have a normal sale of agreement and we have 1 little paragraph in the special conditions that very nicely basically says, if you do not want to purchase this property within the 6 months, you can walk away from the contract. And so what this does allow developers to do is to put land under an option, or what we do, a 6-month due diligence. And then it gives you that 6 months to then do the work, because there is so much back end work and due diligence work in the feasibility that you must do to then feel confident and comfortable to actually move forward with that project. So I think that it's such an underrated strategy for developers, because it allows you to get more sites under contract. It then gives you that time to go through the sites to make sure that they are feasible and there's no big warts on them. But also within that 6-month period of you controlling that land, it could obviously have an increase. So it is a win-win. So we have, over the last sort of 7 months, have put 11 different sites under a due diligence clause. So we have 6 months to go through the whole process to then decide if we are then going to follow through and complete those projects. Now, not all of those sites will get through the stage of the DD, so not all of them will progress, but some of them will. But at least we have that 6 months to kind of make those decisions. So I think it's a very underrated strategy for developers.
I'm curious, Katie, why would anyone agree to the options contract? Like for me, so I'm assuming as the developer, you're purchasing the land from somebody. If I was reading that contract and saw that you had 6 months to decide, yes, if you will actually basically complete the sale or not, I would be like, well, that's 6 months of me not knowing for sure if this is actually going to happen. Like, I don't know what's the incentive for me to actually sign that.
Yeah, and it's definitely not for everyone. It does depend on the market. It depends, like a lot of land doesn't move quickly in some areas. Obviously in Queensland it's flying, but not in all areas land is moving quickly. So maybe, the vendor has held on to the land for a while. They haven't been able to get rid of it. It's all a part of the negotiation, but not all vendors are keen. And, out of the 11 sites, I probably tried to buy, I reckon, at least 50. So 11 out of the 50 have obviously agreed, and, we're moving forward with those projects. But yeah, it's not for everyone, but you can absolutely find those vendors. And I give you a quick tip on where it really works well is in your off-market deals. So if you are we use Stash as our development tool to find off-market deals, but maybe you're door knocking or you're on Google, and basically you are pinpointing land that would be a good development. Now, it's not for sale just yet, but basically you can knock on the door. We actually approach it by getting local real estate agents to do the door knocking for us. But they basically ask the vendor, hey, would you be interested in selling? And because the vendor still lives in the home in most cases, they actually love the 6-month DD. They're like, yes, we have 6 months to find a new property, and they love it. So most of our sites have come from off market or land that has been sitting on the market for a while. And that's probably why they have agreed to that 6-month DD.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's
that makes
so smart.
Mm.
That was exactly my question as well, Brooke. And how much time then, Katie, do you put into, you've got, your day-to-day, these 6 months or these 11 different sites, how much of your time is split between finding the next deal in the next 6 months or all the, prep and admin that goes into these current 11?
Yeah, so we do have a small team. So the team is now helping finding the new deals, finding the land components. And so we are spending a lot more time on the due diligence because 6 months can go fast when you're chucking Christmas in there. So we are now wrapping up our sites, to decide if we move forward with them. So at the moment, all of my time is more spent on the due diligence side and, organizing these 11 sites to decide if we then progress. And I have my team helping me find some new land.
So cool. Has it ever backfired in your face where someone didn't read the tiny clause that you have written and they've signed and then you've pulled and they've kind of, it's been a bit of a drama?
Well, honestly, the first question I say to the real estate agent or the vendor is, we need a 6-month DD. Are you open? Are you not? And then explain the DD. So, like, I lead with that because there is so much work in the negotiation side of getting land under contract. So, I don't want to get all the way down the negotiations and then, like, hey, this 6-month DD, what's this about? So, I lead with the 6-month DD, as in, like, this is my non negotiable, just to weed out anyone that's not interested.
It's an ethical use of this this clause. I really like that you do that, because I think it can be used in an unethical way too, where it's just kind of in there.
And
It reminds me.
relationships are the most important thing in property. And so, you're building these relationships and this trust with all of the real estate agents. And so, you have to make sure that, you lead with being ethical for sure. Sorry, Brooke, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just going to say there was a speaker today who was speaking about mergers and acquisitions and actually preparing your business for sale, which happens, by the way, years before you actually sell, which I just thought was absolutely insane. But he was saying how everyone thinks that selling a business is like selling a house. You put it on the market, you get a bunch of people interested. He's like, it is absolutely not like that at all. And it was just a really good way to start thinking about, okay, well, if we were to sell She Sells with Brooke, like that exit plan is something that I have to start planning for now. Literally now. And it was just so interesting, some of the things that you have to think about, some of the things you have to do. The fact that he was like you want to be completely transparent, you don't want to just show the hype, because it will all fall through. I've never really considered selling She Sells ever. Like, that's not even something that's crossed my mind, but it really should. That exit plan, just like you said before a bit about the collaborations, in like, have your divorce plan ready. It's like, well, what if something in my line drastically changes and I need that exit plan? It's like, I won't have years up my sleeve to prepare for the sale. So it was another very interesting topic.
And I think your business, like, there are things that you can do to ensure that your business is always, I guess, ready for sale. And one of the biggest things that is probably goes without saying, and one of the things that he mentioned was, making sure that you've got that management team in place, or the business is not reliant on you, which I think can be really confusing for a lot of business owners. I mean, look at Girls Get Off, look at She Sells, you're the face of the brand, and that might come across as a really big risk. However, look, we started out Girls Get Off saying, oh, we don't want to be the face of the brand. We want to make sure that it's always ready for sale if we need to, like you say, if things change. But the reality is that if you look at what resources you have and you look at what resonates the most and what actually you can leverage, often founder-led content, personal branding actually works in your favor. What I would say, though, is that we are now seeing examples of employee-generated content. Brooke, you talked today about how you've got other leaders in your community now on school. You've got different coaches. And I always like to bring it back to a radio station. You think, oh, you hear your same 3 presenters on the drive show every day. How could they possibly leave? But they do. And they change characters and they phase people in and out. It is actually not the end of the world to phase someone in and out of the business. A different, businesses, they have their ups and downs, but they're not actually necessarily as fragile as sometimes we fear that they are. And although that can be a good driver at the beginning, thinking about how can you put the right people in place is important. But I wouldn't let selling your business in 5 years put someone new off getting in front of the camera, because if that's the thing that you can leverage at the start, it's going to take the least amount of time and cost the less, then I still think go for it. But, have that plan in future should you need to change things.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking now of like movies or even TV series, long-lasting TV series that kill off main characters for whatever reason. I'm sure it crosses their mind as well to be like, oh shit, like this is a really popular, famous main character that we have. Like, when we get rid of this, we're going to lose our ratings, our viewership's going to drop down, but they do it anyway because they have to. So it's kind of like a good reframe to have with yourself, is that, like, if at some point we did need to sell for whatever reason, and this is what I was speaking today about the belief and the stabilizing of the community. I never built the community based on belief in just solely me. That's not how my community was built. It was built on a proven process and a system that you can follow, and it's repeatable, and the results come from just repeating that. And I think that's what makes it sellable to some extent, because it removed me, even though my community loves me, obviously, but I can be removed and there will still be women in the community following the proven process and getting results, which...
And that's the thing, Brooke. As soon as you have those people in your community with those results, they then become the face of the brand, which then, reduces the risk of you just being the face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this episode has been absolutely amazing. I feel like you can tell that our brains are just ticking 1,000 miles an hour. We're just like, there was just so much information shared today. But if we could even just share a snippet of that with our listeners, I think they'll walk away with some golden nuggets for sure. Bye.